The room was silent, save for the faint whisper of Kendra's voice as she knelt beside her bed. Her hands were clasped, her head bowed low. She didn't pray loudly, just soft, private murmurs spoken like fragile threads between her and God. The bedroom door creaked slightly as it opened. Marcus stood there in his tailored shirt, adjusting the cufflinks on his sleeves. He stopped just long enough to sneer. "Still talking to your invisible friend, huh?" His voice dripped with mockery, followed by the familiar scoff she had heard too many times. Kendra didn't flinch. She simply closed her eyes tighter, murmuring through it, not out of defiance, but because if she let his words in, they'd settle in her chest like stones. Marcus walked off without another glance, grabbing his keys from the hallway table. His cologne lingered behind him, sharp and expensive, like everything else about him. By evening, the two sat at a long dinner table in a private room of one of Lagos's most exclusive restaurants. Marcus's colleagues, all sharp suits and louder egos, laughed over wine. Kendra sat beside him, quiet, polite. "Gentlemen," Marcus said, raising his glass, "I'd like to thank you all for saving me from another one of Kendra's Sunday sermons. Honestly, if I hear one more prayer circle story..." The table erupted in laughter. Kendra smiled, thin and practiced. She said nothing, only folding her napkin neatly on her lap. "She hosts this Bible study with a bunch of women who think God's going to drop money from the sky," Marcus added. "Meanwhile, I'm out here pitching to investors and closing deals. Let's be real, one of us lives in the real world." Kendra felt her face burn, but she just sipped her water. No one noticed her silence. That was her specialty, vanishing behind the noise. Back at home, she sat at the edge of the bed and removed her earrings one by one. Methodically, she didn't cry. Instead, she pulled out her prayer journal, opened it to a fresh page, and wrote slowly, "Give me strength, Lord. Not for him to change, for me to stand." Her phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. "Devon, you deserve better." She stared at it. Her thumb hovered for a moment. Then she pressed delete. No reply, no temptation, only silence. And the prayer that never left. Kendra was 32, but her eyes held the weight of someone who had been old since childhood. Raised in a modest two-bedroom flat by her grandmother, Mama Elsie, she had learned early that faith could hold you when the world let go. Her parents died in a car accident when she was 7. From that moment, church became her refuge, hymns, her lullabies, prayer, her language for survival. Mama Elsie taught her that God was not just someone you asked things from, but someone you talked to. Kendra clung to that, even now. She met Marcus during her second year at the University of Lagos. He was loud, confident, and made her laugh in a way that cut through the greyness she often carried. He was the opposite of her, ambitious, intense, always looking ahead while she tried to hold on to the present. At first, he loved her calm, said she was like breathing clean air, said she helped him slow down, made him think before reacting. Back then, he brought her food when she forgot to eat, and stayed up to listen to her talk about her dreams, of having a music school, of raising children in a home filled with grace and peace. Marcus was 2 years older, and already building the skeleton of the marketing company that would eventually make him rich. He worked nights, slept 4 hours, said he had no plan B, and he meant it. There was a fire in him Kendra admired, but never fully understood. They married 2 years after graduation. Their wedding was small but joyful. Mama Elsie wept through the vows, clutching her Bible. Marcus kissed her hand and promised to take care of Kendra, till God takes the last breath from me. But success changed him. Maybe it revealed him. Now, Marcus was 34, CEO, always traveling, always at networking events, always unreachable. He'd come home, drop his keys on the marble counter, pour himself something expensive, and scroll through his phone while Kendra reheated food he would barely touch. Some nights, she'd catch a whiff of unfamiliar perfume on his jacket. She never asked. He never offered. Their home was modern, beautiful, and emotionally vacant. Kendra taught piano part-time at a children's center. It wasn't much, but it gave her joy. On weekends, she volunteered at her church, helping organize women's ministry sessions. She brought food to sick members, helped Aunt Rochelle with the choir, and wrote long letters to God in her journal. She longed for a child, had for years, but every time she brought it up, Marcus would brush it off. "We're not ready. You know how much is riding on this next merger?" He said it so often she stopped bringing it up. Her prayers were now more like pleadings. She asked for direction, for strength, for the anger not to take root. But lately, the questions had started. Was this all marriage would ever be? Was she stupid to wait? Aunt Rochelle saw it in her eyes. One evening after Bible study, she pulled Kendra aside. Baby, submission don't mean silence. Don't let him mistake your gentleness for weakness. Kendra nodded, but the words burned. She didn't know how to fight for a man who wasn't present. Then there was Devon. Devon had been around the church for years. Kind, helpful, always respectful. He'd once confessed feelings for her, years ago, before she married Marcus. But when she told him she was engaged, he'd stepped back without drama or bitterness. Since then, he'd stayed in the background, polite, distant. But lately, his kindness felt louder. He never said anything inappropriate, never crossed a line. But his presence, steady and gentle, highlighted the cold vacuum at home. Marcus's closest friend, Ricky, only made things worse. Ricky thrived on ego and conquest. He'd tell Marcus, "You're too young to be tied down. Enjoy your life, bro." Marcus would laugh like it was gospel. Ricky encouraged the clubs, the flirtations, the distance. "He's just a friend," Marcus would say when Kendra mentioned Ricky's influence. But Kendra knew Marcus only listened to people who made him feel powerful, not seen. She prayed, wrote in her journal, held on. But inside, something was shifting. A quiet storm gathering behind her tired eyes. She was still gentle, but she was no longer naive. The air was heavy that night. Rain tapped against the living room windows like tiny fists. Kendra had just finished tidying the kitchen and knelt beside their bed, whispering the same words she'd whispered every night for years. "Lord, I don't know how much longer I can do this, but give me peace, give me patience, help him find his way." She barely heard the door slam open downstairs. Marcus's voice cut through the silence like a blade, loud, slurred, angry. "Of course," he shouted as he stomped up the stairs. "I come home to this. More of your praying nonsense." Kendra remained still, eyes closed, breathing steady. He burst into the bedroom, dripping wet from the storm, his suit half unbuttoned, tie hanging like a noose. "You know what? Maybe it's you," he sneered. "Maybe your pathetic little prayers are the reason everything's falling apart. Bad energy, bad luck, whatever the hell you call it." Kendra opened her eyes, quiet, trembling. "Marcus, you've been drinking. Please, just rest. We can talk in the morning." He laughed, but there was no humor in it, just rage masked by pain. "Talk? To you? To the holy piano teacher with the imaginary friend?" Without warning, he reached over to her nightstand, grabbed her worn Bible, and flung it across the room. It slammed against the wall, pages fluttering like wings in panic. Kendra gasped, but didn't move. Her hand remained on the floor, her lips frozen mid-prayer. Her eyes locked on his, wide, stunned, but not pleading. She stood slowly, walked over to the corner, picked up the Bible, now bent and torn at the spine, and quietly returned it to the nightstand. She didn't say a word. Her silence hit harder than a scream. Marcus scoffed, staggered to the bathroom, and slammed the door behind him. Kendra sat on the edge of the bed, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. The storm outside had nothing on the one inside. By morning, Marcus was gone. No note, no apology. Just a suitcase missing and a notification from their shared calendar. Client weekend, Calabar. But she knew. Devon sent her a message around noon, praying for strength today. You deserve peace. She didn't respond. That evening, she saw the photos on social media. Ricky had posted a video from the beachfront villa. Marcus in sunglasses, two young women laughing in the background, champagne everywhere. It was like watching her own heartbreak in 4K. Still, she said nothing. 2 days later, the call came. It was nearly midnight when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something in her spirit told her to. The voice on the line was frantic. A nurse. "Mom, we found your number in his phone. There's been an accident. A bad one." Her knees buckled. Marcus was in a car with his friend. Ricky's gone. Marcus is alive, but critical. We're airlifting him now to a trauma center in Port Harcourt. He asked for you. Kendra stared at the floor, silent. In the background, she could hear him groaning in pain, muffled but clear. "Kendra," the nurse said gently, "he asked for you, by name." Kendra swallowed hard. She thought of the Bible pages fluttering to the floor. She thought of the laughing colleagues, the perfume on his shirts, the prayers whispered into darkness. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She just stared out into the night. Rain now falling in sheets outside her window. The same storm that brought him down. The same storm that finally made him call the name he used to mock. Heron. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and regret. Kendra sat in the corner of Marcus's ICU room, wrapped in her own silence. The machines beeped steadily beside him, keeping rhythm with her whispered prayers. His face was swollen, pale, barely recognizable beneath the bruises. Tubes trailed from his mouth and chest, and his legs were motionless under the white blanket. Outside the glass, his colleagues paced, murmuring. One of them, Fowler, had the nerve to ask, "She really came?" "She's stronger than all of us," another replied. Ricky's girlfriend had already posted something venomous on social media, blaming Marcus for the crash, for Ricky's death, for everything. The comments poured in. Serves him right. Karma's real. He was always reckless. Kendra didn't respond. She just stayed by his side, hand over his. 2 days later, Marcus stirred. His eyelids fluttered open. A long, low groan escaped his throat. Kendra stood. "Marcus," she whispered, brushing the hair from his forehead. His eyes blinked against the fluorescent light, then locked on hers. "You came?" he rasped. She nodded once. "Yes." He didn't speak again for a while. The nurse came in, adjusted machines, checked vitals. Later, the doctor delivered the news. Spinal trauma, paralyzed from the waist down, permanent. Marcus didn't react at first, just stared blankly at the ceiling. But when they wheeled in the portable commode later that evening, something cracked. His pride, his composure. "Get that thing out of here," he shouted. "I don't need help. I don't need—" "You do," Kendra said gently, standing firm. "I said I don't," he barked. But she didn't flinch. She just nodded at the nurse to step out, then knelt beside the bed, locking eyes with him. "You're angry. I understand. But we're not going to fight each other anymore." He blinked, stunned at her tone. It wasn't soft. It wasn't apologetic. It was steady. The next few weeks were a battle of pride and patience. She bathed him, even when he refused to look at her. She fed him, even when he spat bitter words between every bite. She changed him, cleaned him, waited through his silence and his sudden, cruel barbs. But something had shifted in her. She no longer absorbed his rage like she used to. She no longer folded under his mood. She responded with quiet command, unwavering kindness and boundaries. "You can be angry," she said one morning, wiping his face after another restless night. "But you won't speak to me like that again." And for once, Marcus didn't argue. He was trapped in a body that no longer obeyed him, dependent on the one woman he'd spent years belittling. For the first time in his life, he was powerless. And in that powerlessness, he began to see. He saw flashbacks. They came like waves while he lay in bed staring at the ceiling tile. Kendra crying softly in the bathroom, a pregnancy test in her hand, negative again. Kendra forgiving him after he stumbled home at 3 a.m. with lipstick on his collar. Kendra watching him lie to her face, smile through church services, and pretend everything was fine. Kendra curled in bed alone while he traveled for work. She had endured him, loved him through humiliation, through loneliness, through betrayal. And he had only mocked what gave her strength. One night, long after visiting hours ended, Kendra sat by the window journaling. She heard it, a choked sob, then another. She turned to see him crying, hand pressed to his face, shaking, and then the words slipped out, ragged and raw. "God, if you're real, I can't do this." She didn't say anything at first, just let the moment breathe. Then slowly, she crossed the room and took his hand. He didn't look at her, but didn't pull away either. "I never understood you," he whispered, "or what you held on to all these years." She was quiet. Then, it wasn't about understanding. It was about surviving. His lip trembled. "Will you pray with me?" She hesitated. All those years of being mocked, all the pain, all the nights she'd begged God to either fix her marriage or give her the strength to leave it. And here he was, broken, asking to meet the same God he'd ridiculed. Kendra looked down at his trembling hand. Then she nodded. She knelt beside the bed like she had all those lonely nights, placed her hand over his, and whispered, "Father, we're here, and we're listening now." And for the first time in their marriage, Marcus did too. The rain tapped softly against the windows as Kendra sat at the dining table, organizing bills. She reached for an old, dust-covered laptop Marcus had used years ago, one he never got around to throwing out. She powered it up, thinking she might find some forgotten financial files. Instead, she found the folder labeled Miscellaneous Docs. Click. Her breath caught as the emails opened one after another. Tammy, dozens of messages. Some innocent, most not. Flirty jokes, emotional confessions, plans to meet when things calm down. The last message dated just 3 weeks before the crash. Tammy, can't wait to see you again. Don't let her guilt you out of what we have. You deserve real happiness. Kendra stared at the screen as bile rose in her throat. Her hands shook, but she didn't cry. She printed the emails, walked straight to the bedroom. Marcus was in bed, his wheelchair beside him, arms folded behind his head. He looked up when she entered, immediately sensing something was off. She dropped the papers on his lap. Silence. His eyes scanned the top page, froze. Kendra, how long? Her voice was even. Too even. He opened his mouth, closed it, then softly. A few months. And before the crash? He nodded once. We were planning to meet. The walls felt tighter, her chest hollowed out. I thought maybe we were getting better, she said, more to herself than him. But you were still lying. Even then, he didn't deny it, just bowed his head. I was cruel, he whispered. I was empty. I didn't deserve you. I still don't. For a long time, she said nothing. The weight of years pressed on her. Every insult, every dismissal, every lonely evening replayed behind her eyes. She turned and walked toward the door. Marcus's voice broke behind her. Please don't leave. Her hand hovered over the doorknob. She almost kept walking. Almost. But something made her pause. Not softness, not duty, clarity. She turned, slowly, looked him dead in the eye. This isn't about saving the marriage anymore, she said. This is about saving you. I'll stay, but only if you start showing up. For yourself, not for me. Not because of guilt, not because you're scared to be alone, but because you're finally tired of being hollow. He swallowed hard, then nodded. The next day, Marcus started rehab. It was brutal. Every movement was a battle. His muscles screamed. His pride screamed louder. But for the first time in his life, he didn't fight the process. He leaned into it. He prayed every morning, sometimes barely above a whisper. He even asked the therapist to pray with him before tough sessions. He journaled. He asked questions he'd never cared to ask before, about others, about purpose, about forgiveness. Kendra, meanwhile, stepped back. She no longer hovered, no longer served him every meal or attended every appointment. She let the nurses handle the logistics, let the therapist push him. She reclaimed her time, went back to teaching piano at the community center, started laughing again during Wednesday choir rehearsals. She visited Aunt Rochelle on Sundays, sat on her porch with sweet tea and sunflowers, and talked about everything except Marcus. I'm not here to fix him, Kendra told her one day. I'm just here to witness the healing, if it happens. Rochelle smiled, slow and wise. That's the most loving kind of strength. Weeks passed. Marcus grew stronger. He learned to transfer himself from bed to chair. He practiced wheeling around the block without tipping over. He even started taking online leadership courses, something to give his day structure. But the biggest change wasn't in his legs, it was in his spirit. He apologized to old friends, reached out to Ricky's family. He sent a final message to Tammy. I was broken. That's not an excuse, but this ends here. No drama, no theatrics, just accountability. And every night when he rolled himself into bed, he looked at the empty side and whispered his prayers, not to be loved again, just to be better, one day at a time. The auditorium lights dimmed as the applause faded. Marcus adjusted the mic on his lapel and glanced down at his notes, but he didn't need them. I used to think leadership was about power, he began, his voice calm and steady. That control meant strength, that emotions were distractions, and that faith was just superstition for people afraid of reality. The audience, company executives, young entrepreneurs, interns, listened intently. He took a breath. Then I lost everything I used to lean on. My legs, my reputation, my sense of who I was. A pause. And the only person who should have left me didn't. From the back of the room, Kendra stood near the exit, arms loosely folded, her expression unreadable. But when Marcus's eyes scanned the room and landed on her, he softened. My wife, Kendra, taught me something no business book ever could. She taught me how to kneel before I ever learned to walk again. His voice cracked on that last word. A beat of silence followed, then an eruption of applause, louder, warmer than before. After the event, guests swarmed him, handshakes, backpats, praise. But Marcus scanned the room only for her. He found her near the refreshment table, sipping water. He wheeled over slowly, his hands resting on the wheels like he was preparing a speech all over again. "I meant every word," he said. "I know," Kendra replied, her voice gentle. From his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. No grand gesture, no kneeling, just honesty. "I wanted to give you something," he said. "Not to win you back, just to honor what you gave me when I didn't deserve it." She opened the box. Inside was a delicate charm bracelet with 3 tiny pendants, a piano key, a kneeling figure, and a heart etched with the word grace. "It's not a ring," he added quickly. "I'm not asking for anything." "I know," she said again, her fingers brushing the bracelet. "It's beautiful." He looked up at her. "I'm still learning how to be someone worthy. Even if you never come back, thank you for staying long enough to help me see I could change." Kendra smiled, not a tearful, sentimental smile, a knowing, peaceful one. "I stayed because I knew you could be more, but I'm not here to save you. You're doing that part now." They stood there for a while, him in his chair, her standing tall beside him. Not a couple, not yet, but 2 people on the same page finally. Later that evening, they left together, not hand in hand, but walking side by side, her steps slow to match his wheels. No promises, no reset button, just the quiet, steady rhythm of rebuilding. The church was empty, bathed in golden morning light. Dust danced through sunbeams cutting across the pews. Kendra walked slowly down the aisle, her heels soft against the old wooden floor. She paused at the 4th bench from the front, her grandmother's spot, the place where she had learned how to pray, how to hold on, how to let go. She knelt, not with trembling or urgency, but with peace. No words, just breathe, presence. Her fingers touched the worn edge of the bench, memories flowing through her like warm water. Nights she cried here, days she sang through pain, moments she almost gave up, but didn't. Behind her, the sound of wheels broke the silence. Marcus entered slowly, quietly. He didn't speak, just positioned himself beside her and rested his hands in his lap. He didn't kneel, but his head bowed. Together, they sat in the hush of forgiveness and grace. No audience, no performance, just presence. 2 souls, bruised but still standing, broken but not buried. The stained glass windows glowed with morning fire. Blues and reds flickered across their faces like a gentle blessing. Above them, the church ceiling held their silence. Kendra finally whispered, eyes still closed, "Thank you for showing up." Marcus didn't answer with words, but a single tear rolled down his cheek. They didn't hold hands. They didn't have to. Voiceover. He used to mock her prayers, but when the world failed him, it was her faith that carried them both fade to black. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.